Hello, this is Monica Sawyer. Welcome to Real Estate Investing for Women, where we focus on all aspects of real estate investing, including strategies, mindset, emotional mastery, money smarts, and so much more to ensure your success. If you'd like to learn my personal favorite investing strategy, just go to blissfulinvestor.com. You can also listen to this episode on the Real Estate Investing for Women podcast on iTunes. Now, let's welcome our guest. Today, I am so excited to welcome to the show Devi Adea. She is the host of the Spiritual Entrepreneur podcast and the creator of Podcast on Purpose Online Academy. Spiritual entrepreneurs and conscious leaders hire Devi to help them embrace their soul's purpose, upgrade their consciousness, and share their message and mission with the world through their own media platforms and or soul-driven lifestyle business. Hey there, Devi. How are you? Welcome to the show.
Hi, Monica. It's so awesome to be here. I'm really honored to get to join you in this conversation, especially during this time. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm so excited for what we're going to share with my ladies today. But let's start by, why don't you tell us a little bit more about you? And I know there's so much more interesting stuff than what's in the bio.
Yeah. So we were talking in the green room a little bit before the show about, I was saying, well, some things you may not know about me. And she's like, you should definitely share some of that. So here's the backstory on me. I grew up in Washington, D.C. in a cosmopolitan, yes, also very mystical family. My dad was president of a bank. He was also an Acharya yogi. My godparents were swamis. My grandpa was in the FBI. My grandma was a mystic. And my mom was a VA before VAs were a thing. And she's also clairvoyant. And so I spent a lot of my youth embedded deep in bliss practices, if you want to call it that, and meditating since I could sit. And I also hid that part of myself away for a long time because I didn't feel like it was acceptable in the mainstream world. And so I ended up focusing on the things that I thought were acceptable. And I went and I became salutatorian in my high school class. I went to Carnegie Mellon and got a dual degree in information decision systems and management. Went and worked for Oracle for 7 years. And then I went off and worked for Anthony Robbins companies as a coach. And then I started my own business back in 2000 doing coaching, and I've taken a whole journey just to the point where I launched my show and I started sharing more spiritual practices and bliss related things. And I've helped people also to express the voice of their soul through the work they do in the world. So just an amalgam of humanity, different skills here. And so she thought some of that was interesting. So I wanted to share that with you as well.
I think you're also a real estate investor too.
Oh, that too. Well, yeah. I've done some real estate investing. I wouldn't say on the scale that a lot of people have, but I have done some of that. My grandma actually, my grandfather passed away, and he was an IRS tax guy, and she ended up going to work for H&R Block, I believe, to get her broker's her tax license or something to help people with taxes. And then she went and got her broker's license and her real estate agent license and went around and bought a ton of properties. So it's in my family. And then my Uncle Pat actually owned multiple buildings in San Francisco. He was the ex-district attorney for Merced County. And he took the money from that and started with a $14,000 property and then ended up at the time that he left with millions and millions of dollars under asset and big buildings in San Francisco. So it's part of what I see as a great wealth strategy for once we actually make money from our online business or our brick and mortar business. Taking that money and reinvesting it in real estate is a great vehicle that's very solid over time. And then I also got 2 real estate licenses. Like I said, an amalgam of humanity to help my mother. Because as you know, if you're a realtor, you know that you can't really share commissions unless you're both licensed. So I have a license in DC and Maryland as well that are in referral right now with Metro Referrals. So,
okay. Yeah. Good. So actually when I invited Devi to the show, I didn't know any of that stuff. This was like a pure instinctual, intuitive invitation because I know she talks so much about bliss. And I actually met Devi. She was an icon of influence also at New Media Summit. So we really got to spend some quality time together, which was such a gift. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
So yeah. So today I want, we've been talking a lot about sort of what's going on while we're all in quarantine. And there's an evolution evolution that's happening. Like we see, this too has had a cycle, right? Like there was nobody, first of all, nobody believed it.
Yeah.
and then everyone was like, oh my God, this is a big deal. And then we're all quarantined, and like now we're trying to figure out our like how to be in the house together. And there's all these pieces, right? And the evolution continues. And part of what's on my heart is really my ladies as they're making this evolution, right? Whether they're
Mm-hmm.
work at home moms, whether they're professionals, whether they're about to retire, wherever they are in their lives, this whole thing has shifted the way that they're seeing their world and the way that they are responding in the world, right? And so what I would really love to chat a little bit about is how to bring that spirituality into that work side of our lives,
Mm-hmm.
because it can be challenging, especially with the kids home and a whole new like work environment. You know what I mean? So we want
Completely.
to chat
Yeah.
a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and you guys may be feeling this. I've been feeling, I'll just speak for myself and maybe you'll relate, this kind of like pull to go deep inside and mine the wisdom that's showing up right now. Because I really do feel like this is, in a lot of ways, a next level evolution of us as humans. And our consciousness is definitely spiraling up right now. We're being forced to stop with the way that things have been on a global scale, and we're not siloed. Like we're in a place right now where it doesn't matter where you live, it doesn't matter what gender you are. I mean, none of it doesn't matter how much money you make. We're all being forced to stop. At least in California, we're quarantined, we're stay at place. I know that's pretty much everywhere across the US now that's happening, and globally it's happening. I talked to my sister in Turkey. We're being called to stop. And the beauty of that is it gives us this time of introspection to really reflect on what we're doing, what we've been doing in our lives and our businesses, how we've been doing the work in the world. And I really see us too also being moved from I to we. Like there's this experience where we used to have leadership in business where it's like, hey, look at me, I have the answers, follow me, right? Or a leadership model has been that way. And we've known for a while that that's not really working as much anymore, but there's been this gap not knowing where we're going. And I feel like right now we're in the middle of that transition where we are collectively needing to literally be we to work through this together. And we're in our homes with our families, if you're with other people or with your pet, maybe solo, but we're still having to work together to solve this together, right?
Mm-hmm.
Alone together. And so I've been feeling this like call to go deep inside and mine the wisdom of what's there. And at the same time being pulled forward to step into leadership and sharing, feeling called to use technology in my business, and also feeling called to go and get some time in nature because I've zoomed out most of the time. And then also I've been feeling like, for any of you that are sensitive at all, I've been feeling these waves and cross currents of emotions that have been going through our human species, of just all of these different emotions that are flowing through. And a lot of the tools that I used to use for managing those, my sensitivity to that, aren't really effective anymore. I'm having to learn how to have a different skill set around that. And then also feeling this experience of, wanting to really just be present, but also wanting to plan out kind of what the future is. So you may be in that same place, and then having to find that deep, still voice within in the middle of all of that as my center for being in that. And so one of the things that I would say right now is as we are at home and we're in this time, this is a great time to really reset. Like we're going through a global reset. Now is a great time to do a reset in your life and your business. I know for me, I'm really rethinking a lot of what I've offered. I'm even considering letting go of one of my shows, just leaving it evergreen, my podcast, because I'm feeling really called to start working even deeper in the spiritual practices to help serve the people that are in my life, my clients, and myself as we make this transition. I'm great at tech, I'm great at business, but I'm also feeling called to that. And you may be too. So listen to what it is that you're really feeling. And I would invite you to do this right now. Take everything that you've been doing and just for this week, set it down. Everything. Doesn't matter what it is. If you have existing appointments, keep them. But set it down, put it on the shelf for the week, and sit with what it is that you're feeling called to. What are the stirrings that are happening inside of you? And only pick up those things that are in alignment with that, and start thinking about like, what is my life going to look like in 3 months, 6 months, right? What are the needs of my clients now that are different than they were before? And how does that line up with who I'm being called to be in the next 3 months, 6 months, right? And start to allow that to guide and instruct what it is that you put together now, because I promise you, we are being so helped right now as a humanity to make these changes. And those of us who are willing to step into the gifts that we've been given to serve humanity in a bigger way right now are going to be so supported. And I feel like those of us that are resisting it are going to have to go through some more trials.
Yeah.
So I invite you, if you're feeling that at all, like now is a really good time. Take stake. And I know some of you maybe now have another job called stay-at-home teacher, right?
Homeschool teacher, yes.
Homeschool teacher, and so I know that there's a lot that you're probably handling. I feel like my business is picked up in this time even more so than slowed down. So, I get that there's a lot. So make the time, I would say structure time, even if you can just put away like half-hour bubble bath time where no one comes in, where you like sit with that in meditation, or, hey, I'm going to go for a walk around the neighborhood. Just give me like an hour, like whatever you need. And then, you can talk into a memo on your phone if you want to take notes, or you can do whatever and transcribe them later, however you want to do it. But I would just say, mine that beautiful wisdom inside of you, because right now, the bliss that is you, the soul that is you, has got a lot of instruction for you. Do you agree with that, Monica?
I absolutely do. And it's so interesting that you say that, because so much of my time before this was me traveling all over this place. I was speaking, or I was at an event, or I was taking a class, or, I'm in this constant like expanding out into the world. I'm on TV, like whatever it was I was doing, right? And now I can't do that, right? I'm at home, and I will never say I'm stuck at home, because I am so blissed out to be here. Like, thank goodness I'm not doing all that travel. But really, it was such an interesting thing to watch. Instead of me going, oh my God, I'm stuck at home, I don't get to go do all those things, I was like, I've landed. That is really, really telling, and something that I need to pay attention to about, on the other side of this. Am I going to put that back into my life? Probably not, because I was so happy to get rid of it, right? Here's some other things that happened for me, which was, so my business has probably doubled. I'm working probably twice as hard now, but I'm doing all of those things that I love to do, the things that I do, like recording these podcasts, having these amazing conversations, even the technology of editing and putting the thing out and really connecting with my audience in that way, focusing a little bit more on bliss, right? So I'm doing these things and I'm thinking, wow, why haven't I been doing this, right? So through the process of adjusting to the circumstance, I'm rediscovering the reason that I started this in the first place, right? And how I got distracted, or how I started to move in a direction that wasn't really serving me. And if it doesn't serve me, it doesn't serve my business, it doesn't serve my audience, right? If I'm exhausted, if I get sick, I can't be out there to serve. But now I'm working twice as hard, but I have much more energy. Interesting, right? So I think that so I so agree with what you were saying. We're being called to, even though for me, I'm so much more busy, I'm being called to really pay attention to what it is that is a priority now, when I don't have all those other choices of distraction, what I'm being called to do. Right? And what I'm loving, and what I'm like putting aside because I don't have to do it, or I don't want to do it. Right. And still, obviously, there's no such thing as a life that you don't do the things that you have to do. We still have stuff we have to do, right? In our businesses, in our homes, with our kids, all of those things. But so much of that have to do is gone from my life, which is like magic. And what a blessing. And as you say, a reset for me. And I think that there's this opportunity for the ladies that are listening to this. And as you were talking, there was something that really came to me that's like my next step in this evolution. And I think that it'll serve the ladies also, which is to really create a routine. So up until now, I've been in the flow. I've been having this experience. I've been trying to figure out what I'm supposed to be doing, right? There's all this stuff. But now it's really important for me to reground myself and to take a little bit more responsibility for my life and now how I want to show up. So this morning was the very first morning I did this, where I reestablished my morning routine. My morning routine had kind of gotten thrown off, right? Because my husband's home now. We're sleeping in more. We're doing longer coffees, blah blah blah, right? And I love all that. But he's like, you know what? I want to start working out. And I was kind of like, you know what? I'm ready to start my morning routine again. And I feel so much more solid today. So like what you were talking about finding some time to be introspective, if you create that time for your morning routine, you can plant that right into that hour that you take for yourself in the morning. And I actually did that. I did 15 minutes of meditation, which I haven't done in a long time. And it makes such a difference to me, right? So I think I really, really agree with you that we have an opportunity for a reset. We also have an opportunity for creating new habits and a new foundation for bliss in our lives today. And then as that foundation is built, it becomes our new normal. And we can take that new foundation out with us to create a more blissful experience on the other side of this. Wouldn't you agree?
100%. And I feel like there is so much freedom that comes from structure, especially when we're at home right now. It's very easy because there aren't things that kind of break up and append our daily activities. Like you're like, what day is it? What? I'm catching myself going, is it Saturday or Sunday? Wait, well, it's Monday, right? Right. It's very easy to get there in this time. And some of our routines may fall off. Like you may normally do certain things just to go out of the house and go be on, major media or, show a home or whatever it is that you're doing in your business, taking your kids to school. And those normal activities are missing right now, which are kind of the bookends that we stack activities on. Like we'll be like, oh, okay, well, when I go to drop the kids off at school, then I'm going to go and I'm going to get a cup of coffee and then I'm going to do this thing. And there's like a normal flow that we have that's a habitual flow that we've created over time in whatever it is that we've done that works in our business, right? With like maybe it's I sit down at my desk, I turn this on, I check my schedule for 10 minutes, I make this hour of phone calls. Like you have a set routine. When we're home, that gets a little bit changed, right? And it's like, woo, freedom. And so I know for me, I've been working from home for a long time now. And so I've had to have those structures. So it's not as different as it might be, but I know for a lot of people, they're just shifting into it. Like you really do have to build that for yourself. And I would say the morning routine is critical. Like you're talking about, Monica, like having that to start your day and then stacking your activities throughout the day on top of that consciously. Because here's the gift in this moment is we could go into that unconscious kind of routine where we just do things kind of as we've done them, which is a gift in that it helps us to have structure and get things done. However, I feel like right now, one of the most amazing opportunities facing us is seeing things new, is seeing things fresh, is taking this time to create a structure that inside of that structure has us to be in inquiry about what this is about for us. And that can look like, Brendan Bouchard teaches about doorway triggers, and in NLP, they talk about anchors and things where you like have things in your space that trigger a certain activity. So for him, he would say you walk through the doorway, you can shift your emotion, right? Well, you can also go through the doorway and say, what is it that I was thinking right now, right? How could I even look at that differently? Like you could ask yourself a simple question, or, what am I feeling right now? That's interesting. What could I do to maybe shift that into a state of joy or bliss? Like you can start to do these little things, ask yourself questions, have things that remind you. Or if you catch yourself saying some things to yourself, you can actually start to ask yourself a different question. Like, how can I make that even better right now? What is it that I'm being called to? But I invite you right now to have a practice as part of your morning routine or whenever it is where you're in inquiry. And if you like to do inquiry in a journal, where you write things out, do that. If you like to do inquiry sitting in a bubble bath, meditating and downloading, which is one of my little spaces for great genius, is the bathtub. I don't know why. Take a bath, go. If you like to do that, running, and you can run in your neighborhood. I know some people are limited in where they can go, but if you can go outside and run, do that. Whatever works for you, you'll know what your tool is for that. I just so invite you to build that into your routine, because right now I really do feel like we're being called to step out of like the habitual and into the deeper mining of wisdom that's available. And I do feel like this is an opportunity for us to all spiral up in collective consciousness together. And we need to do that together. One other practice I was going to mention too is if you are feeling called to step into any kind of leadership in your industry, or you're wanting to be a part of the solution, now is an amazing time to get with other leaders in your industry. If you're, if you have kids and families that are part of your school, like if you want to come together, now's the time for us to collectively mine wisdom. There's a gentleman, Danny Levin, he's a good friend of mine, and he talks about this experiment that was done. I don't have all the details on it, but he would know if you check out his mosaic. He's amazing. They had these people go in a group and vote on like who would win, bet on who would win the horse races. And they had this little hexagon shaped thing, and they all moved and picked the answers on what horses would win what race collectively. And then they had individuals do it and pick which ones they thought would win. 100% of the horses that were picked collectively were right, and only one person got one of the races right on their own. So we together have way more access to solutions that serve humanity when we do it together and in our communities. So I just invite you, like, if you're not sure what's going on in your industry right now, you're not sure what's going to happen next, get in conversation with your clients, find out what they need, get in conversation with the people that are in your industry, and look at how you can start to mind share what you can do moving forward in a way that will be supportive at the end of this. And bring those gifts to the table. Now's not a time for us to hibernate and just watch TV and, binge Netflix. I mean, do it for a day if you want, but now's the time for us to evolve and up level in a beautiful way. And I would really say the key to that, like, Monica talks about, is following what brings you bliss inside. And if what you're doing is not bringing you bliss, if what you're doing is not aligned with who you are, and you've just been going through the motions this whole time, now is a great time when you set that down to really reevaluate, is this what I'm meant to be doing? Or is there something else that's been calling to me for a long time that might be like the perfect time to pick up right now?
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I know that I'm going through a huge shift and I can see it. And it's so around me, because we're doing a lot of Zoom. So I'm actually staying pretty connected with my community. Those of us that are podcasters, ladies, I'm not sure if you know this, but we spend our whole life on Zoom anyways. And so we're not feeling super disconnected. We're like, yay,
It's true.
So there are really beautiful things about that. And just so you can utilize those tools for yourself too. We had an 80th birthday party for my husband's parents this weekend on Zoom. And so we delivered them a cake, and we delivered them a dinner. And then the whole family from all over the place got together and had this birthday party. There's like so many opportunities for us to uplift each other too. So anyways, I totally went off on a tangent. Oh yeah.
I love tangents.
But what's really interesting is that David is home, my husband is home, and we have our desks right next to each other. And so now I'm privy to all of his meetings, not all of them. Some of them are kind of like, Monica, you need to be in another room for this. Or he puts a headset on or whatever. But I'm privy to a lot of the meetings. And so I see the group and how in this circumstance where they're all now working at home, most of them have children, how they're reacting and responding to their job and the situation. And what I'm noticing is that there's a lot of crankiness. There's a lot of people feeling really depressed. There's a lot of people showing up in a way that you would never, ever normally want your colleagues to see you. And what happens is, yes, there's a level of vulnerability. There's a little level of acceptance, but we're also expecting, in a lot of cases, a lot of grace during this time, right? But I think what's important is to remember that if we're going to ask for grace, to utilize that grace in a way that supports us. So if we're going to ask for grace, instead of showing up angry, pissed off, and yelling at your coworkers, ask for grace in that I need a moment to ground because I can't be fully present, right? So in your work environment, that's a thing that you can do. And I'm really proud of my husband. Man, he has learned a lot from listening, right? We've become each other. I'm so proud of him because he's the guy that's like, okay, you know what? This is getting a little bit overheated. Let's all take a deep breath. My husband, the engineer, asking people to take a deep breath.
That's
Whoa.
awesome.
Right? So it's really great. Or he'll, he does a lot to sort of balance things out. So now, as we come on the other side of this, what are his bosses going to see?
Yeah.
He's showing up as a leader that's uplifting. He's showing concern for the entire community, the entire group, right? He's not showing up angry. He's not bringing his stuff to work. And whenever he asks for grace, they're happy to give it to him because they know that he'll show up even better than before, right? So that's in a corporate environment. Now, how I'm doing the same thing for myself. I'm asking for grace because I know I don't have everything that I need to perform in the same way that I did. So I'm supposed to be on television on CBS next week, and they needed my new book to be delivered to them. Well, Amazon is not sending out books, and that's who I use to do my print on demand. So I'm not going to be able to get them books. And for a little while, I was like freaking, right? But then I was like, whoa, wait a minute, Monica. You have done the very best that you can. You need to let it go to the universe and let them know that they're not going to get their books. What can I give them instead? Like find a different solution, right? So allowing myself grace allows me then to open up my mind and create maybe a more creative, positive solution rather than freaking out that I can't do everything the way that I have, right? On the other end, the email was very well received. I sent them a PDF. They're really excited. So it's all working out, right? But we can get so stuck in the way we think it should be that it can make us angry, it can make us frustrated, it can bring us down instead of being an opportunity for us to discover what we're capable of. What's really possible for us as these amazing, creative, problem-solving human beings that we are. And if we tap into that deep spiritual core of our real being, we get to discover that. We get to discover our best selves, right? Rather than pushing forward that frustrated self that is also there, right? We're all experiencing this, right? Together, we're all experiencing it. So allow each other grace. And when you're asking for grace, make sure that you're showing up as your best self. Does that make sense? And I'm not saying like put on a front or anything like that. I'm really saying really go deep and find that bliss inside of you and focus so much more on that. Is that making sense?
Yeah, completely. I totally agree with what you're saying. And I think there's something different just in the distinction of being self-responsible for energy. Like, I think what you're saying is so powerful because I think people can show up. I think it's important that we show up with as we are, but it's one thing to acknowledge it and maybe like, you know what, I'm going to be self-responsible for this. So like, you know what, it's been a hard day and I'm choosing to be here and be present. You know what I mean? Like you can acknowledge it. Like it's not, you know what I mean? Or
it's not there.
It's not there.
We all know it's there, right?
And, but we need to be responsible for the energy, not only that we're carrying, but the energy that we're bringing to others in our lives, especially right now when we're in such close environments. And especially when people are going through a lot of different ways of emotion, like all of the emotions that I was mentioning earlier than humanity that are going on. And I think what's really important too, is to remember that we can shift our emotions. Like I was talking the other day about how I had spent, I don't know how long I'd spent on my phone playing with my phone features. I was like, oh, look, it can do portrait and I can change this thing and look at the filters. And I remember I heard myself go, well, and that was useful, you know, right? How? And I was like, oh, well, how was that useful? And I just shift the question to, well, next time I do video, I'm going to be really good at what I'm doing. If I want to take a great picture in the moment, I won't miss it because I'll know how to do it. Like, this is something that's going to serve me because I'm going to feel more comfortable. I want to get on more video and share more of my message with my audience. And sharing my message with my audience is what I feel really called to do right now. And I just walked myself from a place of like, well, that was dumb and stupid and I'm frustrated I wasted that time to, yay, I can't wait to do this more, right? So we have an opportunity to truly, through the inquiry that we bring and the questions we ask ourselves and the perspective that we bring to things, to totally transform our experience and the experience of those around us right now. Like you can just ask them a simple question to make it tilt in their perspective
Mm-hmm.
that will help them to shift their own vibration too when they're not feeling resourceful. And we need to do that for each other right now. So I think it's so beautiful. He's like, okay, let's take a breath, right? Like, great thing. Let's shift energy in a minute, you know? And so just remember that literally peace is a breath away.
Mm-hmm.
Joy is a breath away. Bliss is a breath away. Like we can move into that state. We need to be self-responsible for how we're showing up right now. And how we show up in the energy and vibration that we bring to things will shift what comes back to us. So we really want to be mindful. And it's okay to feel what you feel. Like I'm not saying don't. Like there's
Nor am
probably
I.
some Yeah, I know you're not either. You're amazing. Deep well of wisdom over here. But pulling and mining those deeper, when you don't feel good, maybe there's something there that you're saying to yourself that's not serving you. Maybe there's something that's not in alignment with you that you can let go of. Maybe there's something there that you're needing to look at that you can then shift from. So utilize those moments of what I like to call divine discontent. When you're feeling that divine discontent, it's an opportunity to make a shift. And but definitely I would invite you, it would be really easy to stay there and kind of go into a pity party and quarantine. Like,
Mm-hmm.
don't allow yourself to do that right now. Give yourself the space and grace to move through it. But literally, like right now is the opportunity for us all to be spiraling up together. And if any one of us chooses to not do that, it doesn't serve the collective either. So,
Yeah. I had a conversation with my dad yesterday, and he says, you know, how are you doing? We're having this conversation, and I said, so Dad, how are you doing? And he says, well, I'm bored. I miss seeing my friends. I can't do this, and I can't do that, and I can't do that. And I said, well, Dad, what can you do? And he says, well, I'm cooking every day and I have tea, 10 times a day now rather than twice. And, every time I get bored, I make myself some tea, like, or we go for a walk or whatever, and we're keeping our six feet distance, Monica, I promise, he's so cute. And I said to Dad, Dad, when we can do whatever we want, you're not sitting around saying, oh, I can't fly to India to see my brother every single day.
yeah.
Right? You can't do that and you want to do that, but that's not what you're focusing on every single day, right? What you're focusing on is I get to go see my friends. I get to go do this. Right? And so even now in quarantine, instead of saying, well, I can't see my friends and I can't go out to the movies and I can't go to my favorite restaurant, you might say something like, I get to spend all this time with my family. I'm going on all these walks. I'm like watching the stock market like a hawk and making a ton of money, like focus on the things that we can do and that we do have rather than all of those things that we're missing from our quote unquote normal life. Because you know what? That quote unquote normal life is never going to be the same anyways. So develop that muscle of appreciation, right? For what we can do in this moment, because that's going to change. This whole thing is evolving. We're in constant change, right? So as we're moving through this wave or through this evolution, pay attention to what we can do, what is exciting, what we can bring into our world, our life, and our hearts and our minds that's going to support us. Because I think that it is very normal for us to focus on what we can't have. I mean, I will say, I snapped at David. I'm so bored. I snapped at David. And it was like, baby, that was not who I want to be. Let's go for a drive. We haven't done a drive in a while, right? So just kind of switching, like noticing, yes, there's frustration. We have a right to that, you guys. I'm not saying that we don't. But we also have a right to lift ourselves up, and we have control over that, right? It's in our mind. I had an interview with Hal Elrod on this show of Miracle Morning. And he has this great practice for when you're having an emotional problem. Like he was in sales and he would have a bad sales day or something would go wrong. And so he has this thing. If something goes wrong, you get 5 minutes, right? We can choose to brood for a minute, a day, a week, a year. We can hold grudges for entire lifetimes, right? Like we have a capacity. We also have a capacity to do none of those things, right? We can shift it. So his thing is if he's feeling upset or he's angry at somebody or someone's done him wrong or whatever it is, he gives himself 5 minutes and he gets to be as pissed off or upset or sad or depressed as he wants to be. And then at 5 minutes, the timer goes off and he says to himself, can't change it. Can't
Powerful.
change it,
Mm.
right? And then he switches. Like then there's another place that he needs to be. His emotion needs to, and it's hard in the beginning, right? But within a week, suddenly he's like, oh, I much prefer that than to being pissed off for 2 days, right? And then within a couple of months, it's a complete habit. Like he immediately, he has these anchors. The alarm goes off, it has a certain sound, and then his emotions automatically change to neutral, which then he can fill up, right? So we have so much control, and it's so easy to be blissful when things are good, right? This is when we really get to hone in those practices so that they serve us, so that we are even better than we were before. And like Devi keeps saying, spiral up, because this is our opportunity to lift ourselves, to lift each other, to lift our families, to lift our children, to lift our communities. I mean, seriously, there is so much opportunity for us. And in each of those frustrations, is an opportunity for us to examine ourselves. And I know that that sounds a little bit trite, right? Like, oh, happiness is from the inside, and every challenge is an opportunity. I know, but we really do get to have that experience now, and kind of see what we're made of, and make that better, make ourselves stronger. Right? Wouldn't you agree?
100%. And actually, as you were talking, I was having one of my previous guests' tools come to mind. This woman, Dana Wilde, on my show, and she built a whole like multi-million-dollar business around this one phrase. So basically, if you know how the mind works, we have this thing called a reticular activating system, and it will start to look for what we are basically telling it to look for in our own way through inquiry, right? Or through like if you go say, hey, I want this car, Tony Robbins teaches all the time, I want this, car, you'll start to see that car everywhere, right?
Right.
So our mind starts to look for answers. So one of the powerful things we can do right now is questions. And we don't like to live in questions because we always want to have certainty. However, when we're willing to live in the question, like how can this get even better, and not answer it and just keep answering it, life will start to reflect that question. Well, this woman, Dana Wilde, was on the show, and she built this business using this, and I love it. It used to be that, but I'm starting to notice that. So like, it used to be that I got really frustrated at this thing, but I'm starting to notice that it brings me so much joy. And what's going to happen is you're giving a command to your reticular activating system to start looking for that. Or it used to be that this was a challenge for me to get, a client for this particular product, but I'm starting to notice that they're coming in droves from all of these different places. Or whatever it is you need a resource in. It used to be that I felt like I had no time to be in self-inquiry during quarantine, but I'm starting to notice that all of these pockets are opening up in my day where I have the time to be in self-inquiry. So you can start to use that tool really simply, but what happens is your reticular activating system will start to notice whatever it is that you're saying. And you say that it used to be because it helps your mind to believe it. Like you could just say, I'm starting to notice this, but if it's super contrasty to what's happening, you're not going to be as likely.
It's not as
to believe it.
believable.
Yeah, but if you say it used to be this way, but I'm starting to notice that it's this way, it's a really powerful tool, and I've used it. I was grateful I had her on the show for that reason, because many reasons, but that was one of the things that I've loved. It's a great tool. And the other thing you were talking about that struck something in my mind was being bored, and I was seeing the. I don't know if you guys have seen this video, but there's this guy I think he's in Italy, because I think it's an Italian. And he's like putting on his coat, and his daughter's like, don't leave. He's like, I don't care. I'm going to get a cup of coffee or whatever. Like maybe he's not anyway, he says cafe something, right? Out the door he goes, and you see him walk around, and he goes back in the window. Okay, I want my cafe. He's like ordering coffee through the front window, right? And I've seen people like doing dates in like the car wash, or you get creative, like find ways to make it even more fun right now, like in the environment. I know we need to call in deeper creativity, which if you're creative, that's going to bring a lot of bliss in and of itself. But just be creative right now. Look at new ways of doing things. Try and see things fresh, like not from habit, but from new ways to play and enjoy and experience.
These are all kind of called pattern interrupts in NLP, which you
Yes.
noticed before,
Mm-hmm.
right? We're having like a monstrous pattern interrupt.
The global pattern interrupts.
That's right. That's right. Right. So on the macro level, we've got this pattern interrupt. And on the micro level, we've also got it in our own homes, but even closer than that, in our own brains, in our own hearts, in our own bodies, right? We've got this massive pattern interrupt. And we can so utilize that to sort of move ourselves forward. We've started on this conversation about NLP, and we actually have to close down this portion of the show. So we're going to move into extra right after this. And what I want to talk about is something that Devi brought up. And I just kind of want to throw some ideas back and forth on extra about anchoring bliss in our home. So we were talking about The Doorway by Brendan Burchard, and Anthony Robbins talks all about anchoring in NLP and stuff like that. So I would love to talk a little bit about anchoring, because I do that in my own home. It's one of my bliss secrets too, but I haven't shared that. And so I'd love to share that with somebody who kind of knows this stuff with me, right? In extra. So we're going to talk about anchoring bliss in your home and your office in extra. But before that, Debbie, could you tell my audience how they can get in touch with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you enjoyed this podcast and you like podcasts, you can always come over to my Spiritual Entrepreneur podcast. That's at spiritualentrepreneur.com. Or you can just, connect with me at deviadea.com. And if you're looking for any additional support, all my stuff's going to be on there. We're just revamping the website as I pivot during this transition. So there'll be some great new things on there for you too.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I'll put that information in the show notes.
Awesome.
Debbie, did you have one tip that you wanted to share with everybody before we end this portion of the show to help them to feel more bliss in their lives?
So here's something that I've been doing for a long time. As I mentioned earlier on, that I grew up with swamis, and I've had this practice my whole life where I use this. There's a greeting. It's called Namaste or Namaste, depending upon where you're from. Some people say one, but it's basically the light inside of me honors and acknowledges the light inside of you, and it's a greeting, and it's a way of connecting with someone. Well, one of the ways that I used it is literally wherever I am. I don't say Namaste out loud, but I do tend to witness the greatness and the light inside of other people. And so something that you can do wherever you are, if you are out running on the street and you're 6 feet away from someone else, or you are in your home and you're sitting with your family, literally you can just say, inside of yourself, the light inside of me honors and acknowledges the light inside of you. And when you do that, when you start to make that a practice, every time you connect with someone, what happens is their greatness starts to show up. That light inside of them gets amplified because it's being activated by your focusing on it. And so you can even say the greatness inside of me acknowledges the greatness inside of you. The soul inside of me acknowledges the soul inside of you. Whatever word works for you. But it's life transformative. I've had a lot of people say when they're around me, they feel like anything is possible and they can do whatever they need, and their greatest self is called forth. And I don't actually consciously do this practice anymore. It's one of those unconscious patterns that I have. But because of doing it for so long, I now automatically call forth that in the people that are around me, and they feel it. And that's something that you could just start practicing right now where you are in quarantine, over Zoom if you're by yourself too. I would encourage you to, if you're by yourself, unless you're super introverted, zoom.us, get on there and get connected with other people, because it can, we need each other, right? And just start to do that, silently to yourself, the greatness inside of me, or the light inside of me acknowledges the greatness and light inside of you. Mm-hmm. And I will just say to you, the light inside of me acknowledges the light inside of you. And I thank you so much for spending this time with us today.
Thank you, Debbie. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us for this portion of the show. Stay tuned. If you're subscribed to Extra, we've got more. If you're not subscribed but would like to be, please go check it out at realestateinvestingforwomenextra.com. That's realestateinvestingforwomenextra.com. Ladies, if you go over there, you get 7 days for free. I think there are 37. I actually counted it this time. 37 extras up there. So you can totally binge on them. They go between 7 minutes and 30 or 40 minutes, or kind of all over the map. But the point of Extra is really for my guests to give you the really deep dive, juicy stuff that's really going to pivot your life and move the needle towards your success. So go check it out. You get 7 days free. It's realestateinvestingforwomenextra.com. For those of you that are leaving us now, thank you so much for joining Devi and I for this portion of the show. You know how much I appreciate you, and I look forward to seeing you on the next show. And until then, always remember, bliss is your birthright. Choose to live your bliss every single day. I'll see you next time. Bye. I hope you enjoyed today's show. If you'd like to download my favorite investing strategy, just go to blissfulinvestor.com. See you next time.